All right, Eddie Troxler here, jazzchat.org. You can reach me, or the FATV. Make sure it's up there. Someone was pointing to it the other day, and it wasn't even there. um, I had a local musician that was going to come on, and he wasn't able to. And then one of the staff members asked me about promoting FATV studios. I'm like, well, why don't you just come on as a guest? And so my guest today is a staff member at FATV Studios, and we were going to discuss some of the benefits and perks if you join. It's really inexpensive, and we'll talk about how to join. And I have Ellen Daoust.
That's right.
All right. As my guest, who is a fairly new staff member. And you you can talk a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Eddie. I love your podcast. This show is really like a gem to have here at FATV. So I'm about a little over a month into the job at FATV, and I was born and raised here in Fitchburg, and it was actually 2011 I came here, not to this location, was on Kimball Street at that time, but that's where I learned how to do video editing, how to use a camera, how to set up a tripod. It was so accessible the way they taught, and it ended up changing my career trajectory by coming here to FATV. So I'm rooted here, and then it's like full circle coming back.
That's awesome. Yeah, for me, we were talking just briefly earlier. I'm super grateful that Fitchburg has given me the opportunity to work and teach just as a musician since I've been living here since probably 2002 is when I moved out to this area. But one of my first jobs, actually I got the job when I was moving stuff from Boston. I had stopped in the rest stop there on, is that Lancaster or Lunenburg? Or is that part of Fitchburg? On the highway?
Is it where like the big Apple is?
Yeah,
Johnny Appleseed? I think it's in Leominster, yeah.
Yeah, Leominster. So I had stopped in there, and the lady, I ended up talking about music, which I always do, and she said, well, you should contact this maestro, Wada. He's branched off from the Atlantic Union College, and he's starting a music school. So I found his number, I called him up, and, I remember I got dressed up, I really wanted this job, and so then I go there, and he's like, in a Hawaiian shirt, kick back, So, what would you really like to do? And I worked for them until they closed, actually, and that was a good job. But that was my first introduction to FATV. That, of course, the symphony orchestra and the music school is a nonprofit, so we were also trying to promote that in some way and then talk about the lesson program that we were doing. So I had one of my students on, and we just kind of did a lesson on one of the TV shows. It might have been part of the Barbara show, but I'm not sure. But like every Christmas, I will go on the Barbara Christmas special. It's always fun, and I heard that she might be entering the last, so I would hate to miss it. Hopefully someone will carry on that tradition, but she has been so dedicated, for however many years, it's like 50 years or something, right?
That's right, 50 years.
But anyway, for me, it's an opportunity to be introduced to this. And recently I had started doing this podcast. I think I started last summer. So, watch the past ones. Some are good, maybe some I'm just learning. And we're always streamlining stuff. We learn, by trial and error. So maybe some of the first ones, some of the staff and I were kind of not getting the sound exactly like we wanted. I was bringing in different amplifiers, trying different things, And I'm always trying something different too. And if you're watching and you have suggestions for any of that, just let us know because I think some of the first few I was getting a lot of echoing through this particular guitar and a lot of a bass response. And then one episode there's an upright bass player, and the room was not really. This room wasn't specifically designed for music. It was more for just talking. It's a podcast room, is what it is. So, but they've been working with me, and we've recently, Travis, I think, put up some more sound baffles to help with that, and then we have the curtains and all that helps a lot too. But anyway, if someone wanted to join FATV and become a member, you can work, right? You work for them and learn this stuff. I've been learning a lot. I've been, learning how to do these podcasts, but you were teaching me some of the editing end of it last week, which I've been exposed to Pro Tools and things like that from being in the music business, which is similar. In fact, Avid has, they own a bunch of different stuff like that. But, sorry, I'm losing my voice.
All
But it's kind of the same thing, recording video and audio. You just have more to work with. It's probably the difference like between flying an airplane and driving a car or something like that. But anyway, you want to talk about the stuff that you do?
Yeah. So you brought up a great point that I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about, is that it's a space where you can learn. Mm-hmm. And I think that is very unique that's sort of, I think the beautiful thing about public access TV stations. You're producing content, but it's a space where you're learning a ton of new skills that typically, if you went to a university to learn some of this stuff, you'd pay a ton of money, and oftentimes you might not be getting hands-on experience. Mm-hmm. Here at FATV and most public access stations, you have your hands on equipment, turning it on. You are learning by doing, and I think that, to me, that is one of the best ways to learn, and that's a really special thing here. And yeah, we were sitting down last week learning a Premiere, and it's also like, a community. That's another part of it that I am so enamored with, is the community aspect. You're learning in a community, you're creating in a community, and I think that is sort of like, for quality of life, it's like a piece of the pie being part of a community. So it fills a lot of these wonderful things. And like, I'm curious for you, you were involved with FATV, and then most recently, since the summer, you came back. What made you want to come back through the doors and start your podcast?
I really don't even. I think it kind of just came to me as kind of. I like to share the stuff I do, and I have done just a few little things with my home computer and stuff. And you're kind of limited, There's a lot of free programs online. There's like we were talking. I use a lot of Mac stuff too, but they don't here.
No.
I mean, it's the same programs, but some of them are anyway. It's just a little bit different. Did you go to school for video, sound and video?
I did not. I went to school. I went to Smith College for government and Spanish, and then after graduating, I graduated in like 2009, which was the recession time. And I went right to Fitchburg State to grad school, but that's also that period of time where I landed here at FATV, and that essentially launched me into getting more education around digital production. So, yeah, it was this space that kind of changed the way I looked at what I do for work.
And that's good. Yeah, a lot of it evolves. fairly rapidly. I mean, some of the stuff seems to stay around. I think Pro Tools is, but as far as sound, the stuff I learned on at Berkeley is none of it's around anymore. There was we used something called Studio Vision, but in those days the computers weren't even powerful enough to do video. They, you could hardly do music on them. We had like 8 megabytes of RAM, and that was not. It was tough to even bring up photographs in those days, but this stuff does evolve and it's still evolving. I was gonna get a new Mac at home, but I just noticed they came out with an M5 chip a couple of days ago. So I don't know if I should wait.
I mean, those are the type of questions too that you can look it up online and oftentimes you'll find answers, obviously, but also just being having people you can talk to and ask about it. I didn't even know that was happening. And currently I prior where I worked, it was all Macs.
Uh-huh.
Prior to that, it was all Macs. The other job that I had, and then at home I use Macs. So it's a little bit of a mental transition to switch from one to the other. But
it's not for me. I always used Macs at home, and when I was at Berkeley, I used Macs because I guess Apple, they supply them computers because they know that the students are likely to buy one when they leave. So it's probably a good strategy on their behalf.
When you were at Berkeley, you brought up something interesting where, a lot of the more like technical things you were using no longer.
Yeah, there was one
being
called
used.
Studio Vision. I don't think that's an opcode. Studio Vision. There was we had a notation program called Encore. That's gone. I think Motu was around, but are they still around? Have you ever heard of Mark of the Unicorn? They were a Cambridge-based company.
Okay.
A lot of those companies were within Massachusetts. I think Abbott is a Massachusetts company. They're whereas that's Pro Tools, and I have a first cousin who was a film editor, and he always worked in Hollywood. But they use a version. They use something from Avid, and because I went into one of their. They had a hotel suite. They were filming something in Boston, and they had all these laptops set up. They would film in the day, and they would do editing and have the finished product for these companies when they left. But I looked at it, and it was Pro Tools, on the screens, and he was telling me, but theirs costs like $50,000, But a lot of that stuff is quite expensive. And one thing, if you join, say, FATV, we have access to a lot of that really expensive equipment because that Premiere costs a lot if you were to buy it.
Yes, it definitely does. That's a subscription-based software, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily an accessible software because of how much it costs. So that is totally a benefit of membership, is you have access to the whole Creative Cloud. So like Photoshop, Premiere, whatever, I forget. Oh, After Effects.
Uh-huh. And these studios, for one thing, but also the editing computers, there's about 5 or 6 of them, right?
Yeah, I think there's I think there's 4 computers, and if folks haven't been in the space, I encourage you to come and see this facility. It's beautiful. It's only 3 years old, and it still feels very like new and shiny. It's pristine, really. There is 4 editing cubes, and one of them is dedicated to media preservation. So, for instance, if you have like a VHS tape or even like film, a student was here a couple weeks ago with, I think, 8mm, and they were digitizing that. So
yeah, Travis was showing me some of that. I think I got to try to find some old, because when I was growing up, well, I'm 65 now, so I was born in '60s. So that was when I was a kid, that was the latest technology. Was those? I think you had to wind them. But they didn't have sound on them or anything back then. uh, 8mm, and then I think they switched over to 16mm, which was a little more depth. But they used to do. I remember even when I was at Berkeley in the '90s, they used what they called high 8, like a VHS tape,
Okay.
for like a lot of commercials and stuff, and even the sound they would use VHS tapes too. That was Elisa's had what they called for digital recording when digital first started. But there was always this when of course when digital first came out, people would understand. Oh no, it's not as good as analog. You know, you're losing certain sounds and all that. Maybe, but I think it was Tascam used to give out free T-shirts if you would listen to the tapes, and if you could tell the difference, they would give you a free T-shirt. But I could always win them, only because the digital is much clearer. It's crisper. Like I could listen for the drum sounds, and I know that it was much more distinguishable. So maybe, I guess some people do like the dirtiness of analog tape.
Yeah.
Because we had these like little cassette tapes we could record on, but the more tracks you did, the more noise you would get, you know, if you kept tracking. But yes, certainly has evolved, and you don't. I mean, digital recording, you don't have to rewind or anything. It's an advantage if you make a mistake, you know, you can kind of pinpoint it. But I've just since doing this program, I've learned a lot about, you know, well, podcasting for one thing, because as a musician, I think that it's not about, you know, it used to be you make a record and you try to sell records, but as we know, there's no record stores really to speak of. There's no place to buy CDs really. Maybe Walmart has a few, but so it's about live streaming, I think. These days, you can track wherever you're getting your views or likes, you know, and then you can go play those places if you want. So it's really important as a entertainer or performer or artist of any kind to stay up with this technology, rather than even if you are a visual artist. I mean, you can put yourstuff in galleries, but who knows? You know, is it going to be seen? Is somebody going to walk in and buy it? But if you can reach a larger audience through media, I think is what fascinates me about this program. And I'm super glad that it's here, and it's, you know, was within walking distance of my store, my house. You know, that's one thing I love about Fitchburg. I had never heard of it when I moved out here, but you know, I was able to buy a house, you know, about even in the 2000, whatever it was probably a tenth what Boston would have costed, you know, for the same size house. And I can walk to the store, I can walk over here, I can walk to work, you know. It's has a good college, you know. I think if there's people watching that were looking for an inexpensive place to live. I had the mayor on here one day, and we were talking about sometimes Fitchburg gets a bad rap, but, you know, it's got a lot going for it, too, you know. I think the artists kind of make it cool, and we hope they don't price out the artists, you know.
Yes, right.
As it becomes more a cool place to live. And we're on the commuter rail to Boston, too. I remember when I first moved here, me and my wife both, we worked in Boston. So you can ride the train in, you know, or you can drive it. Sometimes rush hour traffic can be a hassle, but
yeah, indeed. I was on that sort of situation because I worked in Cambridge prior to here, and having the commuter rail in Fitchburg is such a wonderful thing. And you hit upon something. Since working at FATV, one thing I feel like I really have become aware of is the historical significance of Fitchburg and what it was for like the economy and what Main Street was like. And it's like sort of a tragic story, but also hopeful because you can see that there's stuff happening again. But I think what you said about walking, Fitchburg's walkable.
It is.
You know, like, and I'm trying to commit to walking to FATV from my house 2 days a week because it's like a 30-minute walk. When I used to live in Boston, I would walk everywhere. In Fitchburg, you could totally walk everywhere too.
Yeah, I do some. And I'm right by the rail trail too. So that,
Oh, nice.
that's another plus for Fitchburg.
Yeah.
We have the rail trail. And yeah, because I grew up in North Carolina, about 8 miles out from the city. You almost have to drive, just to go to the store. You had to have a car. I mean, I guess you could walk, but it would be a long walk from where I grew up to Greensboro. It would probably be a couple hours. Which, I don't know, the weather's a little nicer, but...
That's true.
But I don't know, for me, being a Southerner originally, and then when I lived in Boston, I think the harsher weather forced me to stay inside and do my schoolwork when I was in school, and now I more do inside stuff, practicing and all that stuff. If it's nice out, I want to be outside. I'm not gonna sit in a room and practice it.
Rightly so. Rightly so.
So for me, it's really worked out good. If there's anybody on the fence where, where should I move to? I mean, a lot of when I was at Berkeley, a lot of people get out of music school. It's New York, L.A., or Nashville. A lot of my friends who made that move, they end up working jobs they don't particularly like just to pay the rent. I mean, I have a few friends in Manhattan, they just, have to work other jobs because it's so expensive. Same with LA, they end up doing construction or whatever. I guess Nashville's still happening, but everybody plays in Nashville. It's like, it's like you're just a really small fish. But for me, I work as a musician, 3 or 4 nights a week lately, and I teach and play, so there's not. I don't have a lot of competition. There's some competition, and when we all seem to get along, we kind of communicate. I usually have people on my show that play around the area. I don't hang out in bars a lot because I don't drink anymore. It's been a while, but I do go if I'm playing, And there's a lot of opportunities to play, other than this is why I had Robert Potterton on, but I also had some people talking about the bar scene too. It's not. There are tons of places to play. Really, I think that's one reason I had Sam on, because someone had posted that there was nothing to play. No, but there's plenty of places. We got Hollis Hills. We got. Well, there's a few bars that I would rather not play in. But no, they're good. They all do. They understand. And I think the musicians, we kind of, being that we know each other, we almost say, don't go on those gigs for free, because if club owners know they can get bands in there for nearly nothing, then we're only hurting each other. So if we can all at least communicate and keep that in mind, and that it's being that small community like that.
Community. That's what that's before I even met you. I remember seeing you play at some different events, like at the art museum, or I think you were at Tacos Tequilas recently.
I do Fridays there. Yeah, that's a good gig.
That's like, I think you also hit on, like, you have kind of community is a part of that, whether it is quote unquote your competition or just knowing like who the business owners are and everything like that. That I think is very valuable too. And I think maybe, I don't know, that could be part of your success too, by seeing you pop up and play music. And it's so wonderful to be somewhere and hear live music. It's just like such a beautiful experience.
Yeah, for me, I'm so grateful I get to play and teach. I mean, I guess I'd hoped to have been a rock and roll star by now, but no, not really. I think I think that comes with a lot of other things too that you don't want. I'm sure it does. So I'm good with I just play and teach, and we're getting toward the last 5 minutes of this podcast, but it's been awesome, and we want to reiterate. That's the right word, right? how to join FATV, because and you can always come. If you're not sure, they do free tours, right? Just you probably want to call first, make sure, because sometimes they get really busy with you do all the sports games, political things, and
FATV is everywhere, it seems like, a lot of the time. But I encourage people, you can walk in. The walk-in hours are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Friday. But you can always call. You can always email. And I am happy to give anyone a tour of this space and talk about membership. And it really is an affordable way to get education, be connected to a community, and just have access to this like state-of-the-art facility and equipment. So yeah, it's $40 for the year as an individual person, and then I believe it's $60 as like a family if you had a full family join.
And that's an awesome deal, for the amount of stuff you get. And like you said, it's an education too. Like you could spend a lot more to go to school. And that Fitchburg Access Television, they have FATV.org, right?
That's right, FATV.org.
Also, they're a nonprofit, right?
Yes.
So, they places like this, they do accept donations of.
We would love anyone to donate to FATV. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, so that's how these things keep going. It's through donations and membership and things of that nature. So keep us in mind, FATV. And you have anything you would like to add?
Just thank you for giving the time to talk about this awesome space.
So for the purposes of this podcast, we keep it public domain, as I've said before. So I was going to end on something. We have about 2 minutes. It's really coming to me, so I'll just make something up. All right, thank you so much for watching FATV, jazzchat.org. Feel free to email me, contact me, make comments. I have the jazzchat.org. I also have a YouTube channel, and you can find me eddiesmusic.com. That's my music shop. I think I'm on Facebook as Edward Troxler. So, look me up. Try to be nice with those comments. Thank you again for watching. And if anyone ever wants to be a guest, just contact me. We can get you on here. There's an empty seat over it. Well, it will be empty. And we talk about jazz or whatever. We can talk about whatever, any kind of music. But anyway, we're down to about 30 seconds. Thanks again for watching FATV, jazzchat.org.